When you first enter the cathedral and turn to face the east end, you see in the distance, mysteriously floating above the central altar, a halo-like object. As you come closer to it, of course, you realize that there's no particular mystery about it, since it is suspended from the roof of the tower. But I hope as you approach it, you also notice something more significant about how well it fits into its surroundings. Its shape echoes the outline of the altar below. The zigzag pattern reflects the zigzag pattern on the altar and also on the Romanesque, the Norman round towers of the nave with their chevron patterns. And it might be that if you shared my particular enthusiasm for Romanesque architecture, that's architecture of the Norman period, it might be that you would also think how appropriate it was to have this kind of chandelier in a Norman church. You might remember perhaps the Barbarossa chandelier in Charlemagne's great chapel at Aachen, or if you've ever been to Hildesheim, the Hetzilo chandelier there, which is an enormous thing. It's 6 meters wide. Now, these genuinely Romanesque chandeliers have both a basic function and also an additional symbolic meaning, as indeed does our corona, but in a different way. So the Hetzilo chandelier in Hildesheim Cathedral primarily serves the obvious function you might expect from the 12th century. It provides a lot of light. It's got 72 candles on it. Whereas it has to be said that in an age of electricity, I don't think the priests celebrating at our altar feel a great influx of additional light from the corona. But our corona does have an important function of a rather different kind. There's a sense in which it replaces the screen, which would have been in the arch beyond, immediately next to the choir, the Scott and Skidmore screen. And they both served, both the screen and the corona, to demarcate a sacred space. But there's a significant difference in the way that they do that. The Skidmore screen is indeed a screen, and very fine. It looks in Victoria and Albert Museum, and long may it remain there. But it, in a sense, shuts us out from the holy place, whereas the corona demarcates the holy space, but it doesn't prevent us from coming in. It doesn't, as it were, contradict those comfortable words that were quoted in the 1662 communion service. Come unto me all that travail and are heavy laden, and I will refresh you. There is no barrier between us and the altar. And that, I think, is a huge advantage in our corona. But just as the Hetzilo chandelier has an additional symbolic meaning, so does the corona. The Hetzilo chandelier, when you look at it, it looks like the walls of a great city, and it's made of copper gilt. And so you have the 12 open doorways, and between them the 12 towers, and between the towers are the battlements, and on the merlons, the raised part of the battlement, there are the 72 candles that I mentioned earlier. And so here we have John the Divine's vision of the New Jerusalem, the heavenly city, coming down from God out of heaven, and how appropriate that is in a cathedral where the Mass is celebrated and the heavenly comes down to us on earth. Now, the corona has a rather different symbolic meaning because it is suggestive of the crown of thorns, that uncomfortable object which reminds us of the physical cruelty and the emotional cruelty of the Roman soldiers as they thrust the crown down on Christ's head and mock him sneeringly, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." So why on earth would you have something so ugly, so unpleasant, gilded and hung in the most prominent place in the cathedral? Well, it seems to me that the answer lies in the way in which Christ accepts that cruelty and the crucifixion which follows. His reaction is not to be vengeful, to call down thunderbolts from heaven or anything like that, and nor is it to be obsessed with his own personal pain. He can look beyond that. And so he forgives rather than wants to punish. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And he also shows concern, love for others. He makes sure that the beloved disciple, John, looks after his mother. And it is this love and forgiveness in the face of the worst that humanity throws at him which makes the crown of thorns into suddenly the crown of glory. And it's this which justifies this potentially savage object being gilt and hung right at the center of our worship.